Hey guys, Godfather of Anxiety here. Just wanted to do a really short video today about why we shouldn't panic or feel defeated if we experience a relapse with our anxiety disorder. Whether it's panic disorder, generalized anxiety disorder, obsessive compulsive disorder, there is good reason not to feel as though your world is ending if you happen to have a relapse. And this is coming from somebody who's had two. And I'm just going to give you a brief summary of how those two relapses occurred. If for those of you who've been watching my videos over the last year or so, you know that I started having panic disorder back in 2003, and I experienced multiple anxiety disorders during the next 6 years, and also clinical depression. So because of this, it was 6 years to finally recover. I took a slow acting benzodiazepine along with an SSRI, and that snapped me out of fight or flight. And I was able, with therapy, to recover fully from the anxiety disorders I had battled over the previous 6 years. So in 2009, definitively by 2010, I would have considered myself fully recovered from my panic disorder and my generalized anxiety disorder and the intrusive thought obsessive compulsive disorder. Again, recovered doesn't mean never experience a symptom, guys, but the symptoms didn't affect my life in a meaningful way. So then for the next 8 years or so, I was good. I was able to, win awards at my job for how well I was doing. I got back to being the person I had been up until the age of 31, to put it short. But then in 2018, I had my first relapse. And, just so you guys know the background there, there was multiple things that happened, but the ones that I feel comfortable disclosing, we had 3 pets pass away that year, and really only one of them we were expecting to lose because it was a lab mix, and he was 16, and we knew his days were numbered. But the other 2 pets we lost it was unexpected, and it was that was just part of what happened during that year. I also made a poor choice with the job schedule that really affected my ability to get sleep, and every time I do that, I have issues. So anyways, I started to have a relapse. I started to have some panic attacks. I also became rather deeply clinically depressed. So, I worked through that basically by altering my job schedule, along with, changing some medication. And that was able to get me back on track. But then only a little over 2 years later, I had another relapse. And this one was definitely induced by the worldwide pandemic and COVID. It shut down all of my coping mechanisms, including my ability to go to the gym. It affected every facet of my life. It changed things at work. It was just, I don't need to tell you guys. You guys all know what that was like. It was no fun. And obviously, it affected everyone's mental health profoundly. Excuse me. But so I started to have, some new and unusual symptoms during that time. I also became convinced that I had a potentially fatal neurological disorder. And for those of you who have watched my benign fasciculation syndrome videos, you know that I was pretty sure I had ALS. You know, there was a gigantic amount of increase in my muscle twitches and just other symptoms that were not, you know, I'd never had before. My limbs were going numb. You know, it's hard to believe. It's really hard to believe that stress, that anxiety, that being in fight or flight can do this, guys, but it can. I'm telling you guys, it can. And so that was, those were the 2 relapses I had. And again, I was able to recover from that one. Again, right before, just to let you guys know, 4 months before the pandemic, I had weaned myself off of the SSRI, which was the last medication I was taking. And I didn't know there was going to be a worldwide pandemic, or I probably wouldn't have done that. I also had let my diet go, and I had ballooned all the way back up to 294 pounds, which, you know, was not good. I wasn't sleeping the way I should. And this will help you see why, you know, you shouldn't freak out if you do have a relapse. So, you know, I just wanted to give you guys a little bit of a background as to what I've gone through concerning relapses. I also, you know, the main reason I'm making the video is because the first thing we're as worriers and what if thinkers, the first thing we're going to do is, oh my gosh, I can't deal with this again. I know that. I thought that. How am I going to deal with this again? I thought this part of my life was over. You know, and you can start to panic, and you shouldn't do this. And I'll explain to you why you shouldn't do this. You shouldn't panic because, guys, if you've recovered from any of the anxiety disorders, you've already learned some of the tools that you needed to in order to recover from this condition. You've already done cognitive behavioral therapy. You've already done exposure therapy. You also may have done some of the lifestyle changes that are so important when it comes to recovery. Diet, exercise, and especially sleep, guys. So important. So, you know, you guys already realized and put in the work. If you recovered from a serious anxiety disorder, clinical anxiety disorder, you had to put in the work if you had it for any length of time, because otherwise, even if you found a medication that works, the thought patterns would eventually overpower the medication, and you'd stay in the same miserable routines that you're in when you're either having panic attacks or agoraphobic or whatever is the case with your specific anxiety disorder. So the first thing I want to tell you guys, don't panic. Don't think that you're not going to get through it. You already got through it once. So if you've gotten through something, and this is the way that anxiety disorders work, in my experience, is the exact opposite of the way relapses work with like serious illnesses like cancer or something. A lot of the times when someone comes out of remission with cancer, that can be a very bad sign, and even like a death sentence, right? But that's not the case with these anxiety disorders, guys. You've already overcome it once, and you already know what you have to do to recover again. Now, there are some things that probably are going to have to be changed. If you look at the circumstances of your relapse, you'll probably see that it didn't just happen, you know, for no reason. You'll see that probably you let some things slip, whether it's your diet, your exercise, or especially your sleep. If these things start getting out of whack, also external stress, right, guys? It might be the case where you know, there was a big life change, or, you know, something happened with your work or with a family member or in a relationship. Maybe you are, you know, in a toxic relationship. There are external stress also can lead you toward a relapse of anxiety disorder. So, you know, the first thing I would say is don't panic. The next thing I would say is take an honest self-assessment of what is really going on. Because did it really just come on out of the blue? Or have you been allowing things that you know are not good habits, especially for someone with underlying anxiety? Have you allowed some habits to creep back? Maybe your media consumption isn't what it should be. Maybe you're I remember during the pandemic, I was watching, you know, especially during the beginning of it, I was watching press conferences and stuff because you want to know what's going on. But then I started to realize that it was being politicized, and watching the press conferences was just heightening my anxiety. So don't fall into a trap of scaring yourself with media consumption, whether it's on the internet or on the news or, you know, look, guys, you got to stay up to date on what's going on in the world, and especially locally. You'd be silly not to keep up with that stuff. But at the same time, there's a difference between checking in once a day or becoming obsessed with it and perseverating on the state of the world, because these things, we know we can't change them, right? We really can't. So look at your life honestly and see where you need to change. Also, how long have you been taking the medication that you're taking? Medication tends to lose efficacy over time. Our bodies build up tolerances, and something that was once very effective may not be effective now. So pay attention to that as well. You know, but what I've noticed with my relapses is they didn't just happen without any cause. Either I had let things slip from a lifestyle standpoint, or external stress had increased dramatically. Again, sleep, guys, I cannot tell you how important sleep is. I don't care how old you are, don't ever think that depriving yourself of sleep is something that's going to work out well for you. Even if you can do it when you're young, like I could, you will have to payback will not be fun. And so I encourage you guys, especially mental health issues are so greatly exacerbated when we don't get enough rest and quality rest, you know? So anyways, so there's no reason to panic if you have a relapse, if your anxiety condition relapses. Recognize it for what it is. Don't have the same fight you may have had in the beginning where, no, this can't be anxiety, because you know it probably is. You know the accompanying symptoms. And so you have to, you know, honestly analyze what's going on. Make sure if for some reason you have stopped receiving treatment from a mental health professional, guys, just go back and start receiving treatment again. It will help you. It also will enable you to switch medications if you need, if that is something you need to do to get out of fight or flight. And also the reminder of an appointment, even if it's only every 3 months, which is what I do now. The reminder of an appointment keeps your mental health in the forefront of your mind. Because, you know, I think men and women do this, but men especially, we don't want to deal with our health. We just want to get up, go, and do our stuff. But when it comes to mental health, guys, you have to put in the work. It doesn't just happen by accident. I wish it did. For some people, it does. But for people with generalized anxiety disorder, panic disorder, obsessive compulsive disorder, you really have to take care of certain things, dot certain I's, cross certain T's, to make sure that you don't have a relapse. So, again, the list of things you want to don't panic, do an honest self-assessment, get back to getting treatment if you haven't, and then it's just going to come down to doing the therapy that you did the first time around. Except the huge advantage that you have this time is you know what it is. It doesn't have to be the boogeyman. It doesn't have to be, I've got, cancer. I could spend 2 days telling you guys about the things that I thought I had over those 6 years. So, anyways, guys, the video's gone longer than I wanted it to. do not get discouraged if you have a relapse. And the quicker you acknowledge what's going on, you do your honest self-assessment, the quicker you'll recover. And you already have the tools, guys. You already have the tools to recover. And this is going to be something that you're going to get through. And you know what you're doing now. So, that's about all I want to say in this video. I just want to thank you guys so much for the engagement with the channel. Keep the comments coming. It helps us to build a community and a safe space where people can explain their experience with anxiety disorders. And that's really what I want with this channel. I don't want people to feel alone, because I think especially, people don't like to talk about it. So you're like, man, I must be the only one who feels this way. And guys, you're not. So thanks again. And until my next video, take care.